The police arrived at 2:17 a.m. The apartment door was half open. Inside, the living room lamp flickered like a dying heartbeat. There was broken glass on the floor. A dining chair lay sideways. A phone screen glowed faintly under the couch, still recording a voice message that no one would ever finish. And in the middle of the room stood Daniel. His shirt was stained. His hands trembled. Not from anger. From something far worse. Exhaustion. The kind that comes from carrying pain for too long. Across the room, on the floor, lay the woman he loved more than life itself. Lara. The neighbors whispered outside. One of them said softly, "I never thought Daniel could do something like this." Another replied, "He always looked so calm." A third voice cut in, "Men like that always hide their true nature." No one asked the real question. No one ever had. What if the calm man had been screaming inside for years? Daniel was the kind of man people trusted without thinking. Quiet. Reliable. Gentle. He worked as a graphic designer, lived a simple life, and believed in something most people had stopped believing in. Love that lasts. He met Lara at a friend's birthday party. She walked into the room like she owned the air around her. Confident. Sharp. Beautiful in a way that made people look twice. When their eyes met across the room, Daniel felt something strange. Not lightning. Not fireworks. Something calmer. Something warmer. Like home. Lara noticed him staring. She walked over. "Do you always look at strangers like that?" Daniel laughed nervously. "Only the ones who look interesting." She smirked. "And do I look interesting?" "You look like someone who knows exactly what she wants." She leaned closer. "I usually get it too." That night they talked for hours. About music. Movies. Dreams. Lara loved how calm Daniel was. Daniel loved how alive Lara made the room feel. When they left the party together, neither of them knew that love sometimes hides its sharpest knives behind its sweetest smiles. 3 months into the relationship, Daniel was late picking Lara up from work. Only 10 minutes. Traffic had been terrible. When she got into the car, she slammed the door. 10 minutes, Daniel. "I'm sorry." "The road." "You always have excuses." He blinked. "I said I'm sorry." She crossed her arms. "You know I hate waiting." Daniel nodded. "I know." The rest of the drive was silent. That night she apologized. "I just had a stressful day." Daniel smiled. "It's okay." And he meant it. Because love forgives easily. At the beginning. A few weeks later they were at dinner with friends. One of Lara's friends joked, "Daniel is so quiet. Are you sure he has opinions?" Everyone laughed. Lara laughed too. Then she said something that made the table even louder. "Oh, he has opinions, he's just too soft to say them." Daniel forced a smile. Someone joked, "Careful Lara, you're bullying him." She rolled her eyes. "Oh please. It's not like he's fragile." The table laughed again. Daniel laughed too. Because what else was he supposed to do? It happened over something small. It always does. Daniel had forgotten to buy the almond milk Lara liked. When she opened the fridge, she froze. "You bought the wrong one." "I didn't see the other brand." "I told you the brand." "I thought it was the same." She turned slowly. "Do you even listen when I talk?" "Of course I do." "Then why do you always mess things up?" "I don't always." The slap landed before he finished the sentence. Not hard. But loud. Daniel stood there, stunned. Lara's eyes widened too. For a moment they both froze. Then she scoffed. "Oh relax. It's not like I punched you." Daniel touched his cheek. "It's fine." She shrugged. "Good." And just like that, the line moved. Over time, Lara developed a rhythm. Tease. Mock. Blame. Apologize. Repeat. If Daniel spoke up, she laughed. "You're so sensitive." If he stayed quiet, she rolled her eyes. "You're so passive." If he disagreed with her, she accused him. "You're trying to control me." If he apologized, she said. Good. At least you know when you're wrong. Daniel stopped arguing. Stopped explaining. Stopped reacting. Because the world around him saw nothing wrong. Friends joked. Happy wife, happy life. A co-worker once laughed when Daniel mentioned Lara slapped him. Man up, bro. My girlfriend throws shoes at me. Another said. At least you know she loves you. Daniel smiled along. Because every time he tried to explain how it felt, people laughed. Love is strange. It can turn suffering into loyalty. Daniel convinced himself Lara didn't mean to hurt him. She was just passionate. Just stressed. Just misunderstood. And besides, she loved him too. Sometimes she would hold him late at night and whisper, "You're the only one who understands me." Those words meant everything to him. So he stayed. Even when she humiliated him in front of friends. Even when she mocked his career. Even when the slaps became normal. Even when the silence inside him started growing louder. One evening they attended Lara's office party. Someone asked Daniel what he did for work. Before he could answer, Lara interrupted. He plays with colors on a computer. Everyone laughed. Daniel smiled weakly. I design marketing graphics. A man at the table nodded. That's creative work. But Lara smirked. It's basically arts and crafts for adults. The laughter grew louder. Something inside Daniel cracked. Just a little. But cracks grow. When they got home, Daniel spoke quietly. Lara, I didn't like what you said tonight. She tossed her purse onto the couch. Oh my God, are you still on that? You embarrassed me. You embarrass yourself by being so sensitive. I just asked you to respect me. She turned slowly. Respect. Her laugh was cold. You want respect? Try acting like a man. The room went silent. Something behind Daniel's eyes changed. But Lara didn't notice. Because for 2 years, he had never pushed back. That night Daniel didn't argue. Didn't apologize. Didn't explain. He simply said, okay. And walked into the bedroom. Lara rolled her eyes. Drama king. But something had shifted. Something quiet. Something dangerous. Because when pain has no voice for too long, it begins to look for other ways to speak. Back in the apartment, Daniel stared at the police lights flashing through the window. Blue. Red. Blue. Red. Outside, people whispered. Inside, silence filled the room. An officer stepped forward. Sir, what happened here? Daniel looked down at Lara. Then he whispered something so quietly the officer almost missed it. I loved her. The officer frowned. And? Daniel's voice broke. She kept hurting me. For the first time in 2 years, Daniel slept on the couch. Not because Lara told him to, but because something inside him no longer felt comfortable sharing the same space with her. He stared at the ceiling all night. The apartment was quiet, yet his mind was louder than it had ever been. Every memory played back like a film he had never fully watched before. The slap over almond milk. The laughter at dinners. The insults disguised as jokes. The endless apologies he made for things he didn't even understand. For the first time, Daniel asked himself a question he had never allowed before. Was this love? When Lara woke up, she noticed him on the couch. She frowned. Are you seriously still sulking? Daniel didn't answer immediately. He had barely slept. I'm not sulking. Then what is this? She asked, pointing at the couch. I just needed space. She laughed. Space? Daniel, you're acting like I cheated on you. He sat up slowly. You said something last night. Oh my God, she groaned. You're still on that. You said I should act like a man. Well, maybe you should. Daniel looked at her carefully. What does that even mean? Lara grabbed her phone from the table. It means stop being so fragile. And just like that, the conversation ended. Because Lara had a way of ending conversations. She didn't scream. She didn't argue. She simply dismissed. As if Daniel's feelings were background noise. Later that day, Daniel met his friend Marcus for lunch. Marcus had known Daniel for nearly 10 years. If anyone could notice something wrong, it should have been him. "Man, you look tired," Marcus said, biting into his burger. "Didn't sleep much." "Work stress." Daniel hesitated. Then he said quietly, "Lara and I argued." Marcus laughed. "Welcome to relationships. It's not just an argument." Marcus leaned back. "What did she do? Yell at you?" Daniel stared at the table. "She slapped me." Marcus paused for half a second. Then shrugged. "Bro, women do that sometimes." Daniel looked up slowly. "She's done it before." Marcus smirked. "Well, what did you do?" "Nothing." "Exactly," Marcus said. "See? No big deal." Daniel felt something cold settle in his chest. No big deal. That sentence followed him all day. Something began changing in Daniel after that. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly. Like a light slowly dimming. He spoke less. Laughed less. Smiled less. Even Lara noticed it. One evening she said, "You're becoming boring." Daniel was washing dishes. "I'm just tired." "You're always tired lately." He didn't respond. She leaned against the counter. "You know what your problem is." Daniel kept washing the plate. "You think too much." Then she flicked water at him from the sink. "Relax." He forced a small smile. But inside, something was quietly breaking. 2 weeks later, Lara insisted they attend another office party. Daniel didn't want to go. But he went anyway. Because that's what he always did. He adapted. The party was loud. Music filled the room. People laughed and drank. Lara thrived in environments like this. She moved through the crowd effortlessly, joking and flirting with colleagues. Daniel stood beside her like furniture. At one point, a tall co-worker named Adrian put his arm around Lara while laughing. Daniel noticed. But he said nothing. Later, Lara returned to him with 2 drinks. "You're being weird again," she said. "I'm fine. You've barely spoken all night." "I don't know anyone here." She rolled her eyes. "Then try being interesting." Daniel said quietly, "I saw you with Adrian." Her expression hardened immediately. "So? You seemed close." "Oh my God," she laughed loudly. "Are you jealous?" "No. I just..." She stepped closer. "Daniel, if I wanted someone else, I'd have them." The words hit him harder than she probably intended. Then she added, "But I'm with you. So stop being insecure." She turned and walked away before he could answer. And the strange thing was, Daniel believed her. Not the part about loyalty, but the part about having other options. Because Lara had made sure he always felt replaceable. The real breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday night. Daniel arrived home late from work. The apartment lights were off except for the living room. Lara sat on the couch scrolling through her phone. "You're late," she said without looking up. "I told you I had a meeting. You didn't text." "My phone died." She finally looked at him. "You always have excuses." Daniel sighed softly. "I'm not doing this tonight." "Doing what?" "This, constant blaming." Her eyes narrowed. "Oh, so now I'm the problem." "I didn't say that." "But that's what you meant." Daniel rubbed his temples. "I'm just tired, Lara." She stood up slowly. "You know what?" "What?" "I'm tired too." Her voice suddenly became sharp. "Tired of babysitting your emotions." Daniel stared at her. "I never asked you to." The slap came fast. Harder than any before. His head turned from the force. Silence filled the room. For a moment neither of them moved. Then Lara said something that would echo in Daniel's mind forever. "If you were a real man, I wouldn't have to do that." Daniel didn't react. Didn't shout. Didn't defend himself. He simply looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time in 2 years, he saw something clearly. Lara wasn't angry. She wasn't frustrated. She wasn't even emotional. She was comfortable. Comfortable hurting him. Comfortable knowing nothing would happen. Because nothing ever had. Daniel picked up his keys from the table. "Where are you going?" she asked. "For a walk." "In the rain?" "Yes." She scoffed. Drama again. He walked to the door. Before leaving, he said quietly, "You know, I loved you more than anything." Lara rolled her eyes. "Still do." Daniel paused. Then he said something strange. "Maybe." And left. The rain poured down as Daniel walked through empty streets. Water soaked his clothes. But he didn't feel cold. He felt awake. Every memory returned. Every insult. Every slap. Every laugh at his expense. Every time someone said it's no big deal. Daniel stopped under a streetlight. For the first time in years, anger appeared. Not explosive anger. Not violent rage. Something deeper. Something quieter. A realization. Love had turned him into a prisoner. And the world had helped build the cage. When Daniel returned home an hour later, Lara was asleep on the couch. Her phone still glowed in her hand. The apartment was silent. Daniel stood in the doorway watching her. 2 years of memories filled the room. The laughter. The arguments. The apologies. The pain. He walked slowly to the kitchen. Opened a drawer. And stood there staring at something inside. For a very long time. Back in the apartment filled with police lights. The officer looked at Daniel carefully. "You said you loved her." Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes." The officer glanced at Lara's body. "Then why did this happen?" Daniel closed his eyes. And whispered something that sounded more like a confession to himself than to the police. "Because no one ever believed she could hurt me." After that night in the rain, something about Daniel changed. Not in the way people expect. He didn't explode. He didn't confront Lara. He didn't even leave. Instead, he became quieter. It was the kind of quiet that people misunderstand. The quiet that looks like peace, but is actually distance. 2 days after the slap, Lara noticed the difference. Daniel no longer argued. He no longer defended himself. He no longer explained anything. When she criticized him, he simply said, "Okay." When she mocked him, he nodded. When she insulted him in front of others, he smiled faintly. At first, Lara liked it. "You're finally learning," she said one evening. Daniel looked up from his laptop. "Learning what?" "How not to overreact." He nodded slowly. "Right." But what Lara didn't understand was this. Daniel hadn't learned obedience. He had learned detachment. Weeks passed. Their apartment became strangely quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. The heavy kind. Daniel stopped sharing stories from work. Stopped telling jokes. Stopped asking Lara about her day. Their conversations became mechanical. "Did you eat?" "Yes." "Did you pay the electricity bill?" "Yes." "Are you going out tonight?" "No." Lara noticed the change but misunderstood it. "You've become boring," she said again. Daniel didn't react. He simply kept reading his book. That annoyed her more than anger ever would have. One evening Lara came home irritated. Her heels clicked aggressively across the floor. "You won't believe what happened at work," she said. Daniel looked up. "What happened?" "That idiot Adrian messed up a presentation and somehow I had to fix it." Daniel nodded politely. "That's frustrating." She waited. Normally he would ask more questions. Offer comfort. React. But he didn't. "Is that all you're going to say?" she asked. "What else should I say?" She crossed her arms. "You're acting weird again." "I'm listening." "You're not engaging." Daniel paused. "What does engaging look like to you?" "I don't know," she snapped. "Just, not this." He nodded once. "Okay." And went back to his book. Lara stared at him with irritation. The strange thing was, for the first time since their relationship began, Daniel had taken away the one thing Lara always controlled. His reactions. Lara didn't realize it immediately, but she was slowly losing power. For 2 years, her words had shaped Daniel's emotions. Her anger created his fear. Her approval created his relief. But now, nothing happened. It was like punching water. Her insults landed and disappeared. That frustrated her. And frustration made her meaner. You've gotten lazy. No response. You're not ambitious enough. No response. Sometimes I wonder why I'm even with you. No response. One night she laughed and said, "You're lucky I don't leave you for someone more exciting." Daniel looked at her calmly. That's your choice. That sentence annoyed her more than any argument ever had. At another dinner with friends, Lara made one of her usual jokes. Daniel had heard versions of it many times. "My boyfriend is so passive," she told the table. "If a burglar came in, he'd probably apologize for interrupting." Everyone laughed. But Daniel didn't. He simply sipped his drink. One friend noticed. "You okay, Daniel?" He nodded. "Yeah." Lara leaned closer and whispered, "See? That's the problem. No personality." Daniel met her eyes. And for a split second, she saw something unfamiliar there. Not sadness. Not fear. Distance. It unsettled her. But she brushed the feeling aside. A few days later Daniel visited his mother. She lived in a quiet house across town. When she opened the door, she smiled warmly. "Daniel." She hugged him tightly. But after a few minutes of talking, she noticed something. "You seem different." He shrugged. "Just tired." She studied his face carefully. "You know you can talk to me about anything." Daniel smiled gently. "I know." She hesitated. "How are things with Lara?" Daniel looked out the window. For a moment he considered telling the truth. The slaps. The insults. The exhaustion. But then he remembered Marcus laughing. No big deal. So he simply said, "We're fine." His mother smiled. "I'm glad." But mothers sometimes sense things words don't say. As he left that evening, she watched him walk to his car with a strange feeling in her chest. Something about her son felt distant. 3 months after the rainy night, something happened that neither of them expected. Daniel came home early from work. The apartment door was slightly open. Inside, he heard laughter. Lara's voice. And another voice. Male. Daniel stepped inside quietly. The laughter came from the bedroom. For a moment he froze. Then he walked toward the door. It was slightly open. Through the gap he saw Lara sitting on the bed. And Adrian standing very close to her. Too close. They weren't kissing. They weren't touching. But the intimacy in their posture said everything. Daniel pushed the door open. They both turned. Lara's eyes widened. "Daniel?" Adrian stepped back immediately. "Hey man." Daniel looked at him calmly. "Leave." Adrian hesitated. Then grabbed his jacket and quickly walked past him. The apartment door closed. Silence filled the bedroom. Lara crossed her arms. "You came home early." "Yes." She sighed dramatically. "You're overreacting." Daniel looked at her. "I didn't say anything." "Well, you're thinking it." "What am I thinking?" "That something happened." Daniel waited. She rolled her eyes. "Adrian just came to drop off some work files." "In the bedroom?" She scoffed. "You're unbelievable." Daniel nodded slowly. "Okay." That irritated her. "You don't believe me." "I didn't say that." "You're judging me." "I'm not." "Say something then." Daniel looked at her quietly. "I don't feel like arguing." And walked out of the room. Lara stood there stunned. Because for the first time in 2 years, Daniel hadn't chased the argument. That night neither of them spoke. Lara scrolled through her phone. Daniel sat at the dining table staring at nothing. At midnight Lara finally said, "You're being ridiculous." Daniel didn't answer. Nothing happened with Adrian. Still silence. "You know what your problem is." Daniel finally looked up. "What?" "You're weak." The word hung in the air. Then she added something even worse. I could walk all over you and you'd still stay. Daniel looked at her for a long time. Then he said quietly, "You're probably right," and stood up. The officer watched Daniel carefully. "You're saying things escalated over time?" Daniel nodded slowly. "Yes." "How long had the abuse been happening?" Daniel thought about the question, then answered softly, 2 years. The officer frowned. "Why didn't you leave?" Daniel looked down at his trembling hands. His voice barely rose above a whisper. "Because I loved her." The apartment had never felt so quiet. After the confrontation about Adrian, Daniel and Lara existed in the same space like strangers forced to share a room. They still spoke, but only when necessary. "Did you lock the door?" "Yes." "Are you using the car tomorrow?" "No." "Did you pay the internet bill?" "Yes." No warmth. No laughter. Just two people living inside the shadow of something broken. Lara hated the silence. Not because she missed Daniel's affection, but because she missed his reactions. For 2 years, Daniel had been predictable. If she mocked him, he defended himself. If she insulted him, he argued. If she slapped him, he forgave her. Now, nothing. It was like shouting into an empty room. And Lara wasn't used to feeling powerless. One Friday evening, Lara came home later than usual. The smell of alcohol followed her into the apartment. Daniel was sitting on the couch reading. She dropped her purse loudly. "You didn't ask where I was." Daniel turned a page in his book. "I assumed you were out." "I was with Adrian." Daniel looked up briefly. "Okay. That was it. No jealousy. No questions. Just okay." Lara felt irritation rising in her chest. "You don't care?" Daniel closed his book calmly. "You're free to spend time with whoever you want." That answer made her angrier than any accusation. "You're unbelievable." Daniel said nothing. She stepped closer. "Say something." "What do you want me to say?" "I want you to react." Daniel studied her face quietly. "I used to." The words hit harder than shouting. For a moment Lara didn't know what to say. Then anger returned. "Oh please. Don't act like some victim." Daniel didn't respond. Something inside Lara snapped. She grabbed the book from Daniel's hands and threw it across the room. "Stop doing this silent act." Daniel watched the book slide across the floor. "Give it back." "Make me." He stood slowly. "Lara." "What?" "Give me the book." Her eyes burned with defiance. "No." Daniel took a step forward. For a moment the room felt tense. Then she slapped him. Hard. The sound echoed through the apartment. But something was different this time. Daniel didn't touch his cheek. Didn't look shocked. Didn't step back. He simply stared at her. And that scared Lara more than anything before. "What?" she snapped. "Are you going to cry now?" Daniel's voice was calm. "No." She laughed mockingly. "You know what your problem is." He waited. "You're pathetic." Silence filled the room. Then she added something crueler. "I could replace you tomorrow." Daniel looked at her. "You probably could." The calmness in his voice unsettled her again. So she pushed further. "I already have options." He didn't respond. She stepped closer. "You think Adrian wouldn't treat me better?" Still silence. Then she said the sentence that would echo forever. "I should have chosen someone like him instead of you." For 2 years Daniel had absorbed everything. Every insult. Every humiliation. Every slap. But that sentence did something different. It didn't hurt. It emptied something inside him. He suddenly realized something simple. He had been fighting for love alone. And when a fight has only one person in it, it's not a relationship. It's surrender. Daniel turned and walked to the kitchen. Lara rolled her eyes. "Oh great, now you're running away." He opened a drawer. Inside was a kitchen knife. He didn't pick it up. He simply stared at it. For a long time. When Daniel returned to the living room, Lara was still there. Arms crossed. Angry. Waiting. Are you done being dramatic? She asked. Daniel stood quietly. Something about his face looked different now. Not angry. Not emotional. Just empty. You were right about something, he said softly. Oh? What's that? You said I would stay no matter how badly you treated me. She smirked. Because it's true. Daniel nodded slowly. Yes. Then he added quietly. But you were wrong about one thing. Her smirk faded slightly. What? That it would never end. The argument that followed lasted less than 5 minutes. But those 5 minutes would define everything that came after. Voices rose. Old wounds opened. Years of silence suddenly surfaced. Lara pushed. Daniel pushed back. For the first time. Furniture moved. A glass shattered. A chair fell. And then, something happened that no one could undo. The officer stood silently in the apartment. Daniel's voice was shaking now. What happened next? The officer asked. Daniel looked toward the floor where Lara lay. Tears slowly rolled down his face. I didn't want this. The officer spoke carefully. But it happened. Daniel nodded. Yes. Then he whispered the words that explained everything and nothing at the same time. Because love can survive pain, but not forever. The argument didn't begin as violence. It began as truth. And sometimes truth hurts more than any slap ever could. The apartment felt smaller than usual. Like the walls themselves were listening. Lara stood near the couch, breathing heavily. Daniel stood a few feet away. Neither of them looked like the couple they had once been. No warmth. No softness. Just two people standing inside the ruins of something that used to be love. You think you're finally standing up to me? Lara said bitterly. Daniel didn't raise his voice. I'm just speaking. Oh please, she scoffed. You've never had the backbone for that. Daniel's eyes didn't leave her face. Maybe I just didn't want to hurt you. She laughed loudly. Hurt me? Daniel, you're the weakest man I've ever met. The words filled the room like poison. Daniel felt something strange inside him. Not anger. Not sadness. Just a deep exhaustion. The kind that comes when a person finally stops hoping things will change. You know what's funny? Lara continued. You act like you're the one suffering. Daniel answered quietly. I was. She rolled her eyes. Oh my God, here we go. You slapped me, he said. So? You humiliated me. You're dramatic. You made me feel worthless. That's your insecurity. Daniel's voice stayed calm. I loved you. Lara threw her hands in the air. And I stayed with you. Isn't that enough? That sentence landed like a final verdict. Daniel suddenly understood something. To Lara, love had never meant care. It meant tolerance. Her tolerance. Not his pain. Lara grabbed a glass from the table and took a drink. You know what? She said coldly. I'm done with this conversation. She reached for her phone. Daniel spoke again. One question. She didn't look up. What? Did you ever respect me? Silence hung for a moment. Then Lara laughed again. Not kindly. Not softly. Cruelly. Respect you? She looked directly at him. Daniel, I barely even took you seriously. Something fragile inside Daniel shattered. Not loudly, but completely. 2 years of humiliation suddenly stood in front of him like ghosts. Every laugh, every slap, every insult, every time someone said, it's not a big deal. Daniel felt his chest tighten. His breathing became uneven. He wasn't thinking about revenge. He wasn't thinking about anger. He was thinking about escape. About ending something that had been slowly killing him for years. Lara walked toward the kitchen. God, I need another drink. Daniel followed slowly. Lara. She turned. What now? Please stop. Stop what? This. She laughed again. Or what? The question hung in the air. Daniel didn't answer. So she stepped closer. Her voice dropped. Or what, Daniel? Then she shoved him. Hard. He stumbled back into the counter. She shook her head in disgust. Pathetic. Then she said the last words Daniel would ever hear from her. Do something for once in your life. What happened next took less than 10 seconds. But those seconds would change everything. Daniel reached behind him. The kitchen drawer was slightly open. Inside it, a knife. He didn't remember deciding. He didn't remember thinking. His hand simply moved. Lara's eyes widened when she saw it. Daniel. But it was already too late. The room exploded into chaos. A scream. A struggle. A chair falling. A glass shattering. And then, silence. The knife slipped from Daniel's hand. It hit the floor with a soft metallic sound. Lara collapsed. Daniel stood frozen. The world seemed to slow. He looked at his hands. Then at Lara. Then at the room around him. The same apartment where they had laughed. Where they had dreamed. Where they had loved. Now filled with something else entirely. Regret. Daniel sank to the floor. For a long time he didn't move. At 2:14 a.m., Daniel picked up his phone. His hands shook as he dialed. When the operator answered, his voice sounded distant. I need help. What's your emergency? There's been an accident. The word felt wrong even as he said it. But he couldn't think of another. The police arrived 3 minutes later. And that brings the story back to the beginning. The open door. The flashing lights. The broken furniture. The man standing in the middle of the room. And the woman he once loved lying on the floor. The officer studied Daniel carefully. You're saying you endured abuse for years? Daniel nodded slowly. Yes. Why didn't you leave? Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Because the answer sounded so simple. Yet felt impossibly heavy. Because I loved her. The officer looked around the room again. Then back at Daniel. And now. Daniel's voice broke. Now I understand something. What? Daniel whispered the truth that came far too late. Love should never feel like survival. News spread quickly. Friends were shocked. Neighbors were confused. Everyone said the same thing. Daniel was such a quiet man. No one talked about the years before that night. The quiet humiliations. The silent suffering. The invisible wounds. Because pain that happens in private rarely gets witnesses. Months later, Daniel sat in a courtroom. People argued about anger. About responsibility. About violence. But no one truly discussed the thing that mattered most. The slow destruction of a human spirit. Because society often recognizes bruises. But it struggles to see emotional wounds. Especially when the victim is a man. In the end, the story was never really about the crime. It was about the silence before it. The years of pain that no one listened to. The love that turned into endurance. And the moment endurance became unbearable. Because sometimes, the most dangerous wounds are the ones no one believes exist.